Hello and welcome to another intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecareathome.com live stream. Today I'm here to answer your questions, and that's why today's show is called Ask Me Anything. And you can ask me anything as it relates to your loved one in intensive care. Now, before we go to today's questions, what makes me qualified to answer questions for families in intensive care and in intensive care here live on YouTube? I'm a critical care nurse by background. I have been working in intensive care and critical care for over 20 years in 3 different countries, where I also worked as a nurse unit manager for over 5 years in intensive care. I have been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care for over 10 years at intensivecarehotline.com, which is my professional consulting and advocacy service for families in intensive care. We have been advocating for families in intensive care all over the world, and you can read our testimonial section. You can watch our podcasts or listen to our podcasts with client testimonials. I can say without any exaggeration that we have saved lives as part of my consulting and advocacy, and we have changed the trajectory of many decisions that have been made in intensive care in favor of patients and families with very good outcomes. Once again, have a look at our testimonial section. Now, as far as today is concerned, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat pad, or you are welcome to join me live here on the show by just clicking on the link that I just posted here. You can just join me here live on the show. You can talk to me directly if that's what you want. Alternatively, you can type your questions into the chat pad. And Leo has typed a question here who says, if my father, hi Leo, by the way, hi Leo, if my father was to take a 2-hour flight, could he on his own oxygen, or would he need to bring O2 on the plane? Also, what about humidification? Is that important? And how would that work on a short flight? Great question. So, Leo, what I'm not clear is, and I know you've been here before, but I can't remember what your situation was all about. Leo, is your dad on a ventilator? Is he having a breathing tube? Is he having a trach? Can you tell me more about what your dad's situation is? Because only then can I guide you with this. Now, we have actually, as part of our intensive care at home, we have actually taken patients on holidays on an airplane. The hospital wants to discharge my father to a local LTAC. I rather return home and figure something out. Sure. But so your dad has a ventilator and a trach. Can you help me understand what your dad's situation is? Does he have a ventilator? Does he have a trach? And then I can guide you with this, but I need to know whether he has a ventilator and a trach. Leo, if you can let me know, that would be great. It's absolutely possible to get on a flight, whether he's got a ventilator or a trach, doesn't matter. It's definitely possible. And it really also depends on whether your dad is going on an airplane with, on a commercial flight, or if he's going on an airplane with a medical crew. If he's going on an airplane with a medical crew, they will have it all sorted out for him. They will have oxygen. They will have everything that your dad needs for the flight. It really depends on how you want to approach this. If he goes on LTAC and you rather return home and figure something out, you need to engage a company that's doing air flights, medical air flights, and there are plenty of companies out there who can do that for you, and they will sort it out for you. The only thing that I will say is, how much oxygen does your dad need? How much does he need? Is he on 2 liters of oxygen? Is he on 10 liters of oxygen? That would be very important to know. Humidification, absolutely important, very important. So a lot of it depends on how long the flight is. If it's a couple of hours, he can go on what's called an HME filter, and that would provide him with humidification. And that is sufficient most of the time for a couple of hours. Right? Humidification is always important for anyone with a ventilator and a trach. Always very important. Right. So I hope that clarifies, Leo, and that answers your question. And yes, you don't want your dad to go to an LTAC. You'd rather have him closer to home and figure it out from there. Absolutely. The other thing you can look at, if you're not wanting to go to LTAC, of course, have a look at intensive care at home. It sounds to me like you're in the US. Have a look whether you want help with intensive care at home. We can help you privately. Right? So let's look at some other questions that have come in during the week. And if you have any other questions, type them into the chat pad or join me live on the show here. And join me live on the show and ask your questions. If you don't have any questions right now, I'll just read out questions from during the week. Oh, Leo's coming on. Hi, Leo, hang on.
Oh, Patrick, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm kind of rattled. The hospital has filed a discharge for my father yesterday. They want to send him to a local LTAC. And yes, I have been on your show. I have typed questions in the past. So the situation is my father came to Florida for a consultation. And immediately the same week that we arrived for this consultation, he had anoxic brain injury, which he was put into the ICU, and he was in the ICU for a month. And then he was moved upstairs to the subacute floor. This actual Monday would be his 60 days in the hospital. And in the United States, his insurance, Medicare, says, after that period of time, the hospital will start making less money. So in order to make the money, they deemed my father stable enough to move to a local LTAC. So my question is, the case manager here does not want to work with us at all.
Wow.
The hospital staff, the limited information I do get from the doctors seems always to put a negative spin on everything. I tried to get an outside second opinion, but I cannot. So I'm thinking, I'm originally from New York City. I was thinking of trying to figure a way to go back to New York City. I don't have the funds to hire air ambulance. So I was thinking of either doing a medical escort or a respiratory nurse or something like that, or just trying to take him myself home. Um, he has a trach, and what they did was in the last 48 hours, they weaned him down to off of the ventilator. Then he was on oxygen, and then yesterday into today, he just has the humidification. I'm sorry, difficult for me to pronounce. So I don't know how the insurance is going to rule, whether it's going to be in my favor or in the favor of the hospital. But I'm very worried for my father's health. Um, so I was just wondering if you could comment on that. And by the way,
Yep.
thank you for being a good advocate for us small community of people that have to go through these challenges. I really like your saying our biggest challenge is not what we do not know. I'm not phrasing it exactly as you would, but that is a very positive saying, and I listen to your show regularly.
No, thank you, Leo, for your kind words. Leo, just the anoxic brain injury. So your dad would have had a cardiac arrest, or
Yes, he had a cardiac arrest while he was in the hospital.
yeah. And your dad is from New York originally as well, so it's not you as the son wanting to get
No,
him back to.
I have no ties here.
Does your dad have ties here?
No, we only
Okay.
came down here as a second opinion.
Okay. And you are saying the insurance will not support you to get back home. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
That's maddening.
I've been trying since we were downstairs in the ICU for close to 2 months now. I've been trying various different organizations. I've tried. Um, I tried doing a small GoFundMe. I've tried reaching out to family members to try to find organizations that could, charities that to help transport him home. Unfortunately, the circumstances when I initially reached out, it was the holidays, and it was explained to me primarily they do this for cancer patients, for children that are in need, and service people, army and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So my father doesn't fall in any of those categories.
Okay. Do you feel like your dad right now is in good hands? Do you feel that overall he's in good hands?
It's the hospital I'm in, and I don't want to say the name, but the hospital that I'm in is a teaching hospital. So the providers change from day to day. And it's not just the providers, it's the nurses. The nurses are training other nurses. The PCTs are training other PCTs, even down to the cleaning people. So on a day-to-day basis, you don't see the same person. There's no consistency. And so the only thing that is daily is when there is more than one provider that comes into the room, they have a little huddle outside of the room, and I can see them having this huddle. So I know that they're trying to speak as one voice when they come into the room. And it's very daunting when I do see them out of the room, what's going to be said. And because they have the knowledge and I don't have the knowledge, I feel like I'm a minion and they're the guy, a big thing. So it's very challenging for me.
Okay. Do you feel like your dad's situation has improved significantly since he first arrived there?
That is also, he has minimal, they haven't treated his anoxic brain injury on a neurological spectrum. It's been an uphill battle. Every time I ask to speak to a particular provider of a specialty, such as a pulmonologist, a neurologist, it's always no, 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 or we'll see. And it's been very dismissive, or we'll get back to you. And there hasn't been very much of a positive on my behalf, So fortunately, at times, you'll get that novice person that has that little bit more malleability, they're little that you can work with them a little more. But overall, I get like a rigidness where they really don't want to, they want just to make sure that he's stable and that they show what I get is that internally that they're trying to do what's best for the hospital.
Yeah. They're trying to put him on a pathway that they put people on in similar situations. That's a one size, what I call a one size fits all situation. They're not taking into account that you have no ties and your dad has no ties to this place. They're not taking that into consideration at all.
No. And I tried to explain them multiple times that I don't have the means to hire the air ambulance. I don't have the means. I don't have the, it's just me here. And I'm here around the clock. So, things happen around the clock. That, blood work will happen at 1 o'clock in the morning, even though he has a sign that says sleep enhancement, do not bother him. People come in. He'll have an x-ray at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, or he has a trach, so he has lots of secretions and he can't clear those. So I'm constantly getting up to press the call bell. So mentally, I am not with it because I haven't, these 2 months, I haven't got a full night's rest, and it's very daunting for me. So I'm looking. If I was in more familiar surroundings, I probably would have a better chance, and I would have family members that could help, alleviate the burden of uh, sitting with my father, being an advocate like I've been for these last 2 months.
How old is your dad?
He is 74.
Okay. Leo, couple of questions here. So your ideal scenario is to get your dad back to New York as quickly as possible. That is your ideal scenario.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Have you spoken to Medicare about this?
Yes.
And
In my appeal.
In your appeal, and they're more or less dismissive. They're not
No,
wanting to.
right now the hospital filed yesterday the discharge paperwork to send us to a local LTAC. Right now, Medicare has him in a review status. So ideally, once you put in the paperwork, it takes about 2 days for the whole process to work its way through. So I'm thinking that I most likely will find out tomorrow, and then I can appeal whatever decision that is. So that can possibly bring me into possibly Tuesday.
Okay. Okay. So surely, whilst I wouldn't consider myself the expert on Medicare, surely, given that it's sort of a government insurance program, surely there must be a provision for someone needing hospital out of state to return back home. Surely there must be a provision like that.
No, they have a provision where if you feel that this location is not ideal for him, they can move him to, depending on, if he needs some sort of specialty service that this hospital does not provide, they can move him to the next closest facility that would have that particular service. So
I see.
I'm at the bottom of the United States. We're closer to the top of the United States. So it's not, unless I did multiple hops and put his life in jeopardy, there's no way for me to ideally do that.
Wow. Okay. And there's no other extra insurance that he has on top of Medicare?
No.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So the only way forward at the moment that you can see is to fund this privately. That's the only way you can see this happening?
Yes. And I started a GoFundMe for that. And I didn't, at the time, we actually had most of the money for an air ambulance, and we had a LTAC in New Jersey, which is next to New York, able to receive him. But the case manager, in his infinite wisdom, decided to send that documentation saying he's off of the ventilator for 72, no, not 70, for whatever amount of hours. And this was close to the end of the business day yesterday. So the LTAC said, we're not going to accept you. So that in turn made everything that we planned to do null and void. So they immediately said, because they didn't want to take the responsibility of keeping us here or taking the blame for their boo-boo, they said, we're just going to send you to the nearest LTAC. So they filed, for the discharge yesterday, and that's when I filed my appeal.
Can you make an appeal to the hospital about, quite frankly, sending the wrong information to the LTAC in New Jersey? Can you make an appeal / complaint about that? Because clearly this is critical for you and for
I don't know exactly. What I do know is they don't have like a liaison or a patient advocate. They have a dedicated line called patient services, I believe, or something of that nature.
yeah.
And it's an investigative telephone number. And this hospital is an affiliate of another hospital that's in the Midwest. And so it's would be a lengthy process, and probably by the time that they came to their decision, I already would be down at the other LTAC. You know,
Here
I,
is here is here is what I would do, Leo, if I was you. These it sounds very much like these are extenuating circumstances, right? It sounds like extenuating circumstances. They wouldn't have many patients in this hospital from out of state. They might have another one or two, but there wouldn't be many. Okay. And there wouldn't be many patients out of state that are as complex as your dad, right? So here is what I have found helps, in a situation like that. If I was you, I would go to hospital executive and make a complaint. That's what I would do. You'd be surprised of what might happen. My experience is that whenever we make a complaint to hospital executive, you get almost an immediate response, even on a weekend, because they can't really ignore the complaint from a patient. So I know that hospitals have those, patient advocacy groups or whatever they're called, it's just lip service, Leo. It's just lip service. It's just bullshit. Excuse my language. It's just a whole lot of bullshit. It's just them having a fancy name. Here is where you can make a complaint and nothing will happen. Right? The ultimate decision maker in a hospital is at the top. Right?
Okay.
The ultimate decision maker is at the top. And the top is hospital general manager, CEO, whatever their title is, vice president, whatever title they have. That's where I would go if I was you, because it sounds to me like you've been there for, did you say 2 months?
A little more than 2 months, yes.
It's not, you need to get back. Your dad needs to get back. Are you the only family member sort of being there
Yes.
at the moment? Yeah, no, that's not.
I've been here. My clothes are literally disintegrating because, and I'm, I have no life. I'm living in the same room, and I'm living off of the crackers and water.
No,
And
no.
it's kind of like, they say that the patient gets delirium. I feel like I'm getting delirium because I haven't left this room in that period of time.
No. You need to escalate this just as vividly as you are describing the situation to me. You just need to describe it as vividly as that to hospital executive and to Medicare, right? It sounds to me like you have a very dispassionate case manager there, which is very disheartening, of course. You dropped out.
I'm sorry.
There you go. There you are. It's very disheartening. That's okay. It's very disheartening to hear that you are dealing with, a dispassionate case manager, but you need to go above that. You need to go above that. There are people out there who care. You just need to find them. You just haven't found them yet.
If you could just answer my question. So my father is off of, he's currently only receiving the I can't even pronounce the
humidifier.
Humidifier, yes. And I just want to know, is it possible or is it safe for him. The flight is very short. It's less than 2 hour flight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely safe. The reason I'm saying that is we've transferred patients around interstate on ventilators, tracheostomy. Critically ill patients are flown around the US or around other countries all the time on multiple forms of life support, ECMO and whatnot. So I can answer that with a very clear yes.
Okay. And then my second,
that won't stop him.
do I need to have like something that, should I bring something as like a backup just in case there's,
When I'm saying flying him around, you will need a medical crew. It wouldn't be safe for you to take him,
okay,
but it would be safe for qualified people to take him.
okay. So like a medical escort wouldn't be needed.
You would need some form of medical escort. You would either need, probably you would need a doctor and a nurse for the medical transfer. Yeah, that's what you would need at the minimum.
Okay. Yeah, because his situation is, the LTAC that we were going to go to, even though we don't want to go to an LTAC, as you told us, one of the things that they are known for is weaning the person off of the trach. And what I gathered from the bits and pieces that I got from the medical people is the reason why he can't get off the trach is because of the anoxic brain injury. His brain, he's the damage. He doesn't have enough mental ability to keep his passageway clear. But they, at the same time, while we're here, they haven't done anything for his mentation and his brain health to help him, to promote him going forward. They haven't even done any kind of basic physical or
Well,
rehabilitation at all. And
that's
their logic is they're there just to make sure that he gets healthy enough so he becomes stable to go somewhere else.
That's another reason, Leo, why you should make a complaint. It's not acceptable for them to not do anything, to not try and progress him further beyond wanting to send him to LTAC. That's another reason why you should make a complaint. It's not acceptable. Let me ask you this, Leo. How responsive is your dad at the moment? When you talk to him, is he opening eyes?
He has minimum amount of periods where earlier this month in January, I say like the beginning of this month, he was actually opening his eyes. His eyes were tracking. He was moving his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but then he got a series of infections, and ever since he's been more or less back into like a coma-like state. His eyes will track, and if you shout something where you're out of his focus, he sometimes may turn his head, but other than that, there is not very much other progression. Okay.
If you ask him to squeeze your hand, he won't do that, will he?
He has been squeezing his hands, but that was another thing that the doctor said, is that there's a neurological phenomenon that they will automatically squeeze your hand and continue squeezing your hand. So they say that he has to be willing to release his hand after a period of time, and he doesn't do that.
Right. Okay. So when you hold his hand and you ask him to squeeze hand, you don't think it's on purpose, you think it's a reflex.
Not always. One time, we were watching Catholic Mass, and I said, "Peace be with you," and he actually squeezed my hand and he released it, as if he was giving me the sign of peace.
Okay. Okay. So you are right in saying that it's kind of unlikely that he can have the trach removed because of his anoxic brain injury. He probably has no swallow reflex, or the swallowing ability is probably not functioning as part of the anoxic brain injury. And if he can't swallow, he might need the trach in the long run,
Okay.
right? Because if he can't swallow, without a trach, saliva would run down his lungs and he would end up with an aspiration pneumonia.
Right. So that,
Right.
fortunately, that automatically makes us not a candidate for an LTAC, because that's essentially their thrust. So that means we would be a candidate for skilled nursing or something below that. But at the same time, here in the United States, all the neurologically specific places for him won't accept him with the trach in place. So it's a catch 22.
It's a catch-22. I think what you should be aiming for is getting him back to a hospital in New York or in New Jersey, whatever works there for you. I really believe that with what you are sharing with me here, you need to go to the top of the hospital, to the top executives there, make a complaint, and just as vividly as you have described your situation to me here and anyone listening, you should describe it just as vividly to hospital executive. You should describe it just as vividly to Medicare, because I think you just haven't found the right people yet that are compassionate towards your situation.
Okay. Thank you very much for your counsel. I appreciate it.
Now, that's a pleasure. And sometimes you need to make some noise here. You do need to make some noise here, and don't give up, because I think it's not acceptable what you and your dad are going through. And I know you probably feel very what's the word, ignored by the people that you have spoken to so far. The doctors seem to be ignoring you, the case manager is ignoring you, but that shouldn't stop you from making some noise.
Okay. I thank you very much.
That's what I would do if I was you. Just because you haven't met any compassionate people yet, keep reaching out for that. And the transfer home with your dad's medical condition is absolutely doable, whether it's on an air flight, whether it's road ambulance. It's absolutely doable. He's out of ICU.
Correct. He's in the subacute floor.
Yeah, so that means he must be stable.
Yes.
Right, he must be stable. So therefore, a transfer back is absolutely possible, right? And the other thing, in the meantime, while you're waiting for the next steps, I would still make some noise there and ask about mobilization, stimulation. So he's actually making progress, right? While you're waiting for whatever is ahead next, they still need to move things forward for him.
Okay.
Don't let them wash their hands clean. Here is another tip, Leo. So in an ideal world, I'll tell you what I think your dad might need as a next step, right? I obviously don't have access to the medical records. I don't understand everything that's going on. However, I believe with what you are sharing with me, your dad will need the trach probably for much longer. Maybe he can get it out one day. But I think what he needs more than anything is physical rehabilitation as well as neurological rehabilitation. It sounds to me like he's getting...
I've been asking for all that ever since he was put into the ICU, and I found out as I started to learn about your website and stuff and listening, I've been asking for it over and over again, and each time with a different voice, because it's multiple providers. Each one said it's not feasible. He's not going to, and they've even at one time said he should just put into hospice. Just prepare his demise.
Okay, two questions here, Leo. Does your dad have an advanced care plan?
He does.
He does. What does it say?
It basically says do not he's full code. He wants to live as long as he can, and he named me as his executor.
Okay, so he is for full treatment.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, don't change that. And I would use this advanced care plan to advocate for him, right? If I was, here's what I would do, Leo. It's good that we're talking about this. Here's what I would do. I would take this advanced care plan and I would send it to hospital executive and basically tell them, look, you are not honoring my dad's wishes here. You're letting him wither away without progressing him forward, right? An advanced care directive is a legal document. Okay. I would use that as leverage to make a complaint to hospital executive as well as to Medicare. So if you are talking to Medicare, I would bring that advanced care plan in.
Okay.
I do believe the advanced care plan is your most important document here.
Okay. Thank you.
Right? How will you as his executive honor his wishes if you are not showing them what he's clearly asking for? Right? I tell you what hospitals do, Leo. Hospitals go the path of least resistance. Of course they do, right? And they will do whatever works best for them. And whatever works best for them in a situation like that is the sort of one size fits all approach by saying, oh, well, for a patient like Leo's dad, we're going to LTAC now. That's their one size fits all approach. Well, medicine and patient treatment is not a one size fits all. It's very individual, right? In your situation, the first thing that needs to happen is you need to go back home with your dad, right? And then the next step is, okay, how can you optimize your dad's medical condition and move him forward? Well, with what you are sharing with me, clearly it is neurological rehabilitation. The issue with neuro rehab is that there are not many neuro rehab facilities out there who can also look after a tracheostomy.
That's
right.
what I'm.
The challenge, but again, there must be something in New York, in a place like New York with, I don't know, 10 million people. There must be something in New York. Probably not so much in Florida because it's much more, scattered and not as densely populated as in New York, I think. But there must be something for your dad. You just haven't found it yet.
Yes. And if there's anybody on the platform that knows anything, I would gladly appreciate if they could please put it in the comment section.
Yes, please. Yes, please. If you could do that, there are people here. If you could put that in the comment section, that would be really amazing. That would be really amazing.
And
to sum it up, Leo, make a complaint, make some noise, get that advanced care plan, show it to them and say, hey, this is what my dad wants and I'm here to make sure this advanced care plan is honored, right? And you, unfortunately, in this situation, you need to make some noise. They're trying to brush you off and you need to go above the people that you're dealing with, unfortunately. And don't give up. You will be heard. You will be heard, but you will need to make some noise.
I thank you very much for your time.
It's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure.
I wish you all the best in the new year and continue up being the great advocate you have been.
Thank you. And the same for you. I wish you and your family all the best. And you'll turn this around. Don't be discouraged. Make some noise.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All the best. Bye. All the best. Take care. Thank you. Okay. So let's go back to some other questions that have come in during the week. If someone else has any questions, please type them into the chat pad or come on the stream like Leo did. If not, I'll have plenty of questions to read out that have come in during the week. Let me just get to them. It's a pleasure, Leo. Thank you. Okay, so I have an email from Brianna who says, I'm here with my mom in hospital. She's no longer on a ventilator and only receiving oxygen through a tracheostomy, and she's been regulating her blood pressure on her own. She's no longer labeled critical condition. She's being transferred to the third floor building of the hospital from ICU. That part of the hospital is called telemetry, but she'll be in telemetry B, whatever that means. She will be monitored every 4 hours here. I have just also talked to my mother's new caseworker. My mom's going to be evaluated sometime soon and deemed stable for outpatient care. Since her medical is LA Care, they're looking for LA facilities, Los Angeles facilities. But since no facility is accepting mom locally, she was accepted to be transferred to San Pedro to a skilled nursing placement. The reason my mom can't qualify for her rehabilitation facility is because she has to be able to do 3 hours of standing physical therapy, or at least be able to sit up on her own. Since she cannot do any of that, she will only qualify for anything other than 24-hour care. I'm planning on going to insurance and switching her to IE Medical so we can look at closer facilities to us, but that could take a month or two, depending on how fast the company works on the switch. What are your thoughts? I really appreciate your help, from Brianna. Now, I do know Brianna's case because I've spoken to Brianna a number of times on the phone. She is one of our clients, and Brianna, like we discussed on the phone, one of the reasons she can't sit up on her own is simply because they haven't done any physical therapy, right? And like I said to you, similar to the situation with Leo we've had a minute ago, you need to make a complaint to the top. What stops the hospital from mobilizing your mom? You know, what stops them? They need to mobilize her. It's part of recovery, right? And yes, your mom has been through a lot with the stroke and the anoxic brain injury, right? But if she goes into a skilled nursing facility with a tracheostomy, she will probably end up back in ICU, or she will die. Because those skilled nursing facilities, I mean, look at the online reviews. You know, look at the questions we've been getting over the years from families who have a loved one in a skilled nursing facility. It's horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. You know, so what you need to do is, she needs to get physical therapy every single day where she's at the moment. Every single day. You know, no matter where she's going next, doesn't matter where she's going next, they still need to do physical therapy. You know, if they're not doing that, it's negligence. She'll end up with pressure sores. She'll end up with contractions. You know, she'll go from bad to worse if they're not doing that. And you need to hold their feet to the fire. Now, similar to Leo a minute ago, does your mom have an advanced care plan? Right? I don't have the answer to that because we didn't talk about that on the phone. But if she does have an advanced care plan that she wants X, Y, and Z done, well, then you should be holding them accountable for that. You know, similar to Leo, you need to make some noise here. It's very important. Okay, so let's move on to the next question from Sue, who says, my son died in ICU when the nurses A, had his bed around the wrong way, and B, didn't monitor him. He died of hypoxic brain injury as his tracheostomy got blocked when they were changing shifts and did not monitor him after we had left. We had to get the nurse to clear his tracheostomy 3 times during the day. Unfortunately, this happened after we had gone home, so we couldn't help. He was getting better and better, and they were going to remove the tracheostomy the next day, as all his vital signs were good. They have not given an explanation, and the coroner said he died from a fungal infection. When we questioned this, they said that they had no information from ICU, only from his admission. We know he died from his brain injury, but they will not admit it. Also, they were supposed to put a cold blanket under and above him to try and preserve his brain. He knew we were there when we arrived an hour after the incident. They only put his blanket on top of him and put the other one in the cupboard. I am writing this as a warning against ICU nurses who do not monitor 24 hours and spend most of their time on their phones. I have lost 2 sons to bad ICU care. I am devastated. Thank you, Patrik, for the help you are giving to families with loved ones in intensive care. They must listen to you. Kind regards with a heavy heart from Sue. Sue, I'm terribly, terribly sorry to hear what happened to your son, or potentially to 2 of your sons even. Well, you've heard me say this before, that anyone with a tracheostomy needs a 1-to-1 nurse-to-patient ratio. Doesn't matter whether that's in a hospital or at home. And anyone with a tracheostomy needs a 1-to-1 nurse-to-patient ratio with critical care nurses with a minimum of 2 years critical care nursing experience, 24 hours a day. Well, this is also evidence-based. I'll come to the evidence in a minute. You said we had to get the nurse to clear his tracheostomy 3 times during that day. Well, if someone is having a tracheostomy, especially if they're having an inner cannula or an inner tube, they need to have the inner tube changed 2 to 3 times a day anyway. It shouldn't need prompting from you. It really shouldn't, right? And it's an absolute tragedy to hear that this happened a day before the tracheostomy was meant to be removed. That is an absolute tragedy. They have not given you an explanation, and the coroner said he died from a fungal infection. When we questioned this, they said they had no information from ICU, only from admission. Well, they're probably withholding information. Now, here's what we can do for you, Sue, in a situation like that. In a situation like that, we can do a medical record review. We can do a medical record review. Now, you're also saying they only put his blanket on top of him and the other one in the cupboard. Look, if he had a cardiac arrest probably from this event, he would have needed to go into cooling therapy, because that's what it sounds like to me. If his tracheostomy is blocked, he would have gone into cardiac arrest. But this is another reason why I'm saying over and over and over again that patients at home and in a hospital, for that matter, need to have a 1-to-1 critical care nurse for a tracheostomy client, even if they're not ventilated. This is exactly the reason why. And if the ICU nurses had done their job, your son would probably still be alive. So in a home care environment, most of you know we are also running a service, intensive care at home. And you can find more information at intensivecareathome.com, where we provide home care, intensive care with critical care nurses. And all of our critical care nurses have a minimum of 2 years critical care nursing experience. And we provide that service at home for predominantly long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomy, but also for adults and children with tracheostomies that are not ventilated, right? So, and if this happened to your son in a hospital, imagine you would have been at home, without a critical care nurse. That's why it's so important. And here's my case in point. We've had clients at home where the funding bodies were only funding night shifts, for example, and the critical care nurse was not funded during the day for long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies. And what happened with 3 of those clients, where there was no funding for a critical care nurse during the day, All 3 clients passed away during the day when there was no critical care nurse at home, and the funding body said, well, the families or support workers can look after those patients. And they died just as we predicted, because there was no critical care nurse there. They had medical emergencies, tracheostomies blocked, and families could not manage a tracheostomy blockage. Right? With intensive care at home, while we're on the topic, we also provide services for patients at home on BiPAP, CPAP, seizure management, home TPN, IV potassium infusion, IV magnesium infusion, central line management, PICC line management, Hickman's line management, port management, as well as palliative care at home. We do that. But Sue, in your situation, it's absolutely devastating, and this should not happen in an ICU. Absolutely not. What sort of training do they have for their nursing staff there? What sort of standards do they have for their nursing staff there? It's pretty bad. So very sorry to hear that, Sue. But come to us and we get a medical record review. We get a medical record review for you to make sure all bases are covered, and we can look for medical negligence. Also with evidence, yes. So when it comes to tracheostomy and ventilation at home, whether someone is on a ventilator with a tracheostomy, whether someone is at home with a tracheostomy but no ventilation, whether someone is at home for BiPAP, CPAP, they all need critical care nurses 24 hours a day. And those critical care nurses need to have a minimum of 2 years critical care nursing experience. And this is all evidenced with the mechanical home ventilation guidelines. They're evidence-based, and you can get access to the mechanical home ventilation guidelines on our website at intensivecareathome.com. You can get access there to the mechanical home ventilation guidelines, and you can read all of that. Now I can see someone might have a question that says Apple Official. What is your question? Just type it in, just type it in. So yeah, go to intensivecareathome.com and have a look at the mechanical home ventilation guidelines. And it sounds to me like, Sue, in your case, the hospital was violating their guidelines. Okay, well, just type in your question. I'm not sure what you're waiting for. I'm here to answer questions, so why don't you type in your question? I can't do it for you. Okay, next question that's coming during the week. Just give me 1 second. So next question is from Mary, who says, my husband has been in ICU for 10 weeks. He's stable, but he's not getting better. Right. That's a good question. Well, 10 weeks in ICU is a long time. Now, you haven't given a lot of details here, Mary. However, 10 weeks in ICU is a long time. Your husband is probably on a ventilator. He's probably having a tracheostomy. And yes, he might be stable, but he's not getting better. Then the next solution for him clearly will be intensive care at home, right? He needs to go home if he's not getting better, but he's stable. With intensive care at home, we are currently operating all around Australia, in all major capital cities, as well as rural and regional areas. We are an NDIS-approved service provider for intensive care at home, TAC in Victoria, iCare in New South Wales, NIISQ in Queensland, as well as a DVA-approved service provider. We are also a service provider that has received public hospital funding, Department of Health funding, as well as private health insurance funding. So You know, it sounds to me like your husband is a candidate for that, Mary. Also, we're also providing level 2 and level 3 NDI support coordination for intensive care at home, right? So we can help you with that really, really quickly, Mary, to get your dad home. Okay. There's a comment from someone who says no comment. Yeah, that sounds to me like there's someone on spam. I think I'll ban this user. We're not spamming here. We have questions for families in intensive care and not any spammy questions. So yeah, that's what you need to do, Mary, for your husband. Get him home. Reach out to us with intensive care at home. And also with intensive care at home, if you're in the US or in the UK and you need help, reach out to us privately. More information at intensivecareathome.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website, or simply send us an email to info@intensivecareathome.com. Now, also, we have a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. And you can get access to the membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care at intensivecarehotline.com. If you click on the membership link there, or you go to intensivecaresupport.org directly. In the membership, you have access to me and my team 24 hours a day in the membership area and via email, and we answer all questions intensive care related. I also offer one-on-one consulting and advocacy for families in intensive care over the phone, Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whichever medium works best for you. And I talk to you and your families directly. I make sure you know what to say, what questions to ask. But more importantly, I talk to doctors and nurses directly, and I ask all the questions you haven't even considered asking, but you must ask, so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence. You know, and you will see that when I talk to doctors and nurses directly, that the dynamics will very quickly shift in your favor, because the intensive care team then knows that you have someone on your team that knows and understands intensive care inside out, right? We also offer medical record reviews in real time so that you can get a second opinion in real time. We also offer medical record reviews after intensive care if you have unanswered questions, if you need closure, or if you are simply suspecting medical negligence. Furthermore, I also represent you in family meetings with intensive care teams. You know, it's really important for you to have clinical representation and advocacy in a family meeting. Otherwise, they will walk all over you, right? If you don't know what's to come in a family meeting, you will be fighting an uphill battle, right? And I also strategize with you if you should even go into a family meeting. You haven't seen that one coming. You didn't even know it's an option for you not to go, which is often the right thing to do, not to go. But I would strategize with you what's the best option, right? Now, and all of that you get at intensivecarehotline.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website, or simply send us an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Now, if you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates for families in intensive care and intensive care at home. I would appreciate a subscribe. I would appreciate a like of the video. Give the video a like. Click the notification bell. Share the video with your friends and families. And comment below what you want to see next, and what questions and insights you have, and what you want to see next. Thank you so much for watching. This is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecareathome.com. I'll see you during the week here with the quick tip videos, and I will do another YouTube live next week, same time. Take care for now.